Hi guys, my name's Erin and I don't usually put my face on bullet journaling videos like this. I do chat to the camera about cameras sometimes, but not usually about bullet journals, but we're trying something different today, so thanks for being here for my little experiment. This is my bullet journal. I've been bullet journaling for about 2.5 years almost at this point. Bullet journaling is a really fulfilling process. It can keep you super organized and on top of things, but if you're new to the world of bullet journaling and you're seeing all of these posts online, YouTube videos and Instagram posts and Pinterest posts, it can seem really overwhelming and daunting if your entire frame of reference is YouTube videos where people make these incredible artistic creations month to month. And if that's your end goal, you can definitely work your way towards it, but chances are when you first start your journal, it's not going to look like Amanda Rach Lee's, okay? That's just the reality. She's been doing it for a long time. It's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you want to start bullet journaling, you need to buy 100 washi tapes and all of the jewel tipped Tombow brush pens and that glue tape thingy that everybody uses. You don't actually need any of that stuff unless you want to use it, so try not to spend too much money on getting started. Maybe just get started first with what you have. I definitely put that pressure on myself when I first started out bullet journaling, so I wanted to share 5 tips that I think I would have liked to know when I was a beginner bullet journaler that maybe can help you if you're just getting started in this wonderful world of organization and self-realization and other things that end in ation. There's plenty of advice on this out there in the internet, but these are just my tips. These are things that I worked out through trial and error, worked really well for me, and hopefully they help you too. And if they do, please let me know down in the comments because I'd really like to hear from you. Thank you. My first tip for new bullet journalers is to use erasable pens. One of the most paralyzing things about being new to bullet journaling is making mistakes. You think that you have to be perfect in this book, and that's really not true at all. But you can take the pressure off yourself a lot by using erasable pens. This is absolutely not sponsored. They're the only erasable pen brand that I know of, but Pilot make a range called Friction, which comes in a whole bunch of different sizes and colors and thicknesses and chisel tips, and apparently they even make erasable stamps as well. This is one from a pack that I picked up in Japan, but basically you've got your regular pen tip on one side, which does pen things like normal, and then on the other end there is this little rubbery plasticky nib thing, and you can use that to erase whatever you put down on your page with your Friction pens. And now if you make a mistake, you can just erase it and fix it and you're good to go. It takes off all of that pressure. It's kind of like training wheels for your bullet journal, and I found it worked really well for me. My entire first book, after the first little bit when I just got really frustrated with my indelible mistakes, I switched to Friction pens and it helped me. That's my cat. I switched to Friction pens and it helped me so much to get a feel for how I needed to do things going forward in the future. And now I use permanent, unerasable pens, but I absolutely recommend Friction pens as a great place to start out. Friction pens are thermosensitive, which means they work by you creating friction with the end of the pen, which creates heat, which is what makes the ink disappear. So the line you drew on the page is technically still there, you just can't see it anymore. That means anytime your journal ends up in a really hot place, like in a hot car parked in the sun, there's a chance that you'll lose anything that you've written in your journal because of the heat, which is a little bit of a risk. So just make sure that you take your journal with you. If you think something's going to get really hot, don't leave it next to an oven or anything like that. If the worst does happen, apparently you can put it in the fridge or the freezer and it can bring back some of your ink, but do keep in mind that it will also bring back your mistakes. So Friction pens, yay, but also heat around Friction pens, My next tip is to make yourself some templates. I don't know if this is also the case with the other notebook manufacturers that are popular for dotted journals for bullet journaling, but the Logitech 1917 notebooks, the last handful of pages, I don't know exactly how many, are perforated so you can rip them out. So if you need to remove a note or whatever, I guess it's supposed to be handy for that. I found it to be really handy to make myself templates like these. So I've used those tear-outable perforated pages to draw out my most used bullet journal layouts. So this is my standard calendar layout. I've also got, on my older one, a different calendar layout, and I would just pop this behind the page and move it around to draw over my boxes for whatever part of the page I needed to reach. I've also got guidelines for if I do a horizontal weekly layout, I can pop that. This side is 3, which I usually use for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the other side of the page I've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. marked out there as well. That just means every time I'm setting up a new month, I don't have to count as many boxes or dots to make sure that I'm setting things up evenly. You can see I've folded this page in half and in half again, so I can work out really easily where the center of the page is, going either way in case I need to divide it into quarters or halves for whatever reason. It's just, I found it to be really convenient. If you're not using a Leuchtturm 1917 notebook, don't despair. You can just really carefully remove one of the last pages from your current notebook. You can use a different kind of paper altogether, whatever works for you. That's the beauty of bullet journaling. It's all about whatever works for you. And as long as your pages are thin enough that you can see another piece of paper through the page, then you can just trace over it and your template's good to go. If that's not the case, if you were to be using something like the Archer and Olive notebooks, which have a higher GSM, thicker paper, and you can't see templates through a page because it's too thick to see what's going on behind it, then you can, I'll just use this guy for a little bit of a visual example, plan out your lines right next to the edge of the page, and then you can kind of pop it down like a ruler and mark out where you need to be, and then finish up drawing everything in from there. I know Amanda Rach Lee includes a page in her initial setup every year, which is like her guidelines, which just stays in the book, and that is also a really cool idea. I'm just a little bit lazier than that, I guess. My next tip is not to plan too far ahead. I know it can be really tempting when you're just getting into bullet journaling and it's really exciting and you're having a good time planning everything out and your pages are looking nice and you're like, oh yes, this is what I wanted. It can be really tempting to go ahead and plan out an entire year, and then you've basically just spent a lot of time making a planner, which is not really what bullet journaling is supposed to be for. It is absolutely flexible and you should use it the way that works for you, but if you're planning out an entire year in a notebook in advance, then you're kind of robbing yourself of the flexibility to work out what works for you and then change it in the future if something is no longer working or if you find a better way to do something. From a visual perspective, for all my aesthetic bebes out there, you're also locking in your entire book, or several months depending on how much you were planning out in advance, into your current skill level in terms of artistry and lettering and stuff like that, where you might have way better hand lettering in 12 months time, but you get around to that month, it's 12 months from now, and you're still looking at your 1 year ago hand lettering and you're like, oh, I could do so much better than that now. Don't do that to yourself. If you haven't checked out bulletjournal.com, which is the original bullet journaling website about Ryder Carroll's really basic, very original system of bullet journaling, which is very straightforward, one pen, one book, not at all close to what most bullet journaling videos you see on YouTube will be displaying. We've all taken that concept and run with it, and I think that's really beautiful and amazing and fantastic, but I think it's also important to understand where the concept came from. Ryder Carroll's philosophy around bullet journaling is that it should be as functional as possible. And from an environmental perspective, it can also be doing good things for the planet, because if you are going away on a trip for a month, I'm going away for a few weeks in October this year, and I know that I probably won't even take my bullet journal with me, so I probably won't draw out October, besides like a couple of general things, because I don't need those pages. So there's no point drawing out an entire month's worth of stuff and then just not using it, which is an advantage that bullet journaling has over traditional planner methods where everything's printed into the book. Rather than wasting that paper, you can save it for when you do need it and not let it go to waste. My next tip is to curate your inspiration. Look at Pinterest, look at YouTube, look at Instagram, follow the accounts that are making the kind of bullet journaling stuff that you think is beautiful, and make sure that you're keeping track of the things that you want to try and incorporate into future layouts and the things that you find really inspiring about those accounts, so that you can go back to them and use them as a reference when the time comes. That can mean making a YouTube playlist of the videos that have got an idea in them that you want to come back to. It can mean keeping collections in your saved Instagram collections, keeping a Pinterest board, anything like that that means you're going to be able to find that inspiration for the specific things that inspired you when you need it. My last tip is not to lose sight of what you need. So it can be really easy when you're watching other people's videos and looking at other people's Instagram accounts to think, I also need to keep a collection of books that I've read this year, when maybe you're not someone who reads. It is nice to have a pretty page, but if you're not going to use it, what's the point, For me personally, I don't like to keep collections because I don't go back and fill them in or refer back to them or get any particular joy out of setting up a list of my favorite songs or whatever. Favorite movies, stuff like that. I know what my favorite movies are. I don't feel like I need to write them down in my bullet journal. But some people get a lot of joy from that, so it's important to them to have those things in their journal. So you need to think about what's going to bring you joy, what's going to help you stay organized, what's going to help you stay on track, and make sure that you're only including those things in your book. It's okay to put something in and then work out that you don't use it and maybe you're never going to go back to it again, but just make sure you don't carry it forward into your next month or into your next year or into your next journal, whatever the case may be. One thing I love seeing on other people's accounts that I will never ever put in my bullet journal is a sleep tracker, because I sleep pretty well. I don't feel like it's something I need to improve on, and I also have a Fitbit that, if I wear it to bed, tracks my sleep for me, and I can see that on an app on my phone. So for me, a sleep tracker is pretty redundant. For you, it might be absolutely vital. So make sure that you're doing what's going to work specifically for you. If you've worked out that there's something you need to track and you don't know how to do it, this is when you go back to your wonderful resources and you can search for it. Chances are, if you need something, someone else has also needed it and created a spread to solve it. So if you're not feeling creative enough to dive in and work out your own spread, your own layout to solve whatever problem you need to solve, chances are someone's already done it and you can find it on the internet. That is it from me, guys, for this video. Those are my top 5 tips for new bullet journalers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has helped you somehow, and if it has, please let me know. I'd really love to hear from you. One thing I'm really curious about, if you're here watching this video, is how long you've been bullet journaling for and how your journaling has changed from when you first started until now. You've seen a little bit of my old journal in this video, so you know what my progress looks like. So I started in September 2017. I think it looks a lot better now. If you're curious about any of the stuff I use to bullet journal, there are links in the description. Some of them are affiliate links, just FYI. There's also all my social media info, and there's a subscribe button down there too. You might want to visit him if you haven't yet. Just a suggestion. Thanks. I hope your 2020 is off to a wonderful start, and I will see you again in another video very soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.